Imagine an island so remote, so hostile, that locals believe it is cursed. A massive rock sticking out of the freezing North Atlantic Ocean. On top of this rock sits a state-of-the-art lighthouse. Inside are three massive, highly experienced, tough men, whose only job is to keep the light burning. But one night in December, the light goes out. The island goes completely dark. Days later, a rescue ship arrives. The captain climbs the 200 steep cliff steps to the lighthouse. He finds the outer gate closed. He reaches the main door. It is locked from the inside. He breaks inside. The massive iron lighthouse is completely silent. The fire in the grate is dead and cold. The mechanical clocks on the wall have completely stopped. A single chair is toppled over at the kitchen table, as if someone stood up in absolute terror. But the most chilling detail, outside there is a deadly winter hurricane. Yet one of the men's heavy winter coats is still hanging perfectly on its hook. All three men vanished into thin air. But before they disappeared, they left behind a logbook. And the final entries will make your blood run cold. Welcome to the archives of blood. Today we leave the mainland behind. We travel to the absolute edge of the world to investigate the Flannan Isles lighthouse. To fully grasp how impossible this mystery is, you have to understand the location. The Flannan Isles are a small group of uninhabited rocky islands located 15 miles off the coast of Scotland. For centuries, Scottish shepherds would bring their sheep here to graze, but they strictly refused to stay overnight. The locals believed the islands were cursed, occupied by phantoms of the sea. But by 1899, the Scottish Lighthouse Board decided they didn't care about ghost stories. Too many ships were crashing into the rocks in the dark. So they built a massive 75-foot-tall lighthouse. It was an engineering marvel. A lighthouse needs keepers. The board assigned three men: James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. I need you to understand who these men were. They were not easily frightened teenagers. Duckett was a veteran with 20 years of experience. Marshall was a seasoned sailor. And MacArthur, he was a massive, tough Scotsman known as a heavy-handed brawler. He wasn't scared of the weather. Their rotation began in early December 1900. For the first 2 weeks, routine reports were sent. The massive light was shining perfectly, cutting through the fog every night. But on the night of December 15th, a passing ship named the Arctur sailed past the islands. The captain looked up at the cliff and saw nothing. The lighthouse was completely black. When the Arctur reached port, they reported the dead light. The lighthouse board prepared a relief ship, the Hesperus. But a massive winter storm delayed the rescue mission for over a week. Finally, on December 26th, the Hesperus arrived at Eilean Mor. As they approached, the crew felt a creeping anxiety. Normally, the keepers run up the flag to welcome them. But the flagpole was empty. The dock was completely deserted. Captain Harvey blew the ship's massive steam whistle. The blast echoed off the cliffs. But there was no answer. Only the sound of the freezing waves. A volunteer, Joseph Moore, who personally knew the keepers, offered to go ashore in a rowboat. Moore stepped onto the island. The silence was absolute. He began the long climb up the 160 stone stairs. His heart was pounding. He reached the outer gate, closed. He walked up to the heavy main door. He turned the handle, locked. from the inside. Moore unlocked the door with his spare key and stepped inside. "James! Thomas!" he called out. Nothing. What he found inside is the textbook definition of a cognitive paradox. The room was entirely undisturbed, yet deeply wrong. The ashes in the fireplace were completely cold. The pots were scrubbed clean. The beds were unmade, as if the men had just woken up. But the most terrifying detail was the wall clock. It had stopped entirely. Time inside the lighthouse had frozen. Moore immediately checked the coat rack. Lighthouse rules strictly required men to wear heavy waterproof coats when stepping outside into a storm. 2 coats were gone. But Donald MacArthur's coat was still hanging there. The big, tough Scotsman's heavy winter gear, exactly where he left it. He had stepped out into a freezing Atlantic hurricane in just his indoor shirt. Moore ran back to the ship. They searched the entire island. At the West Landing, they found massive destruction. Solid iron railway tracks were ripped from the concrete. A supply box weighing hundreds of pounds smashed. Whatever hit the island was monstrous. They searched everywhere. No bodies, no clues. Until they found the official lighthouse logbook resting on the desk. As Captain Harvey read the final entries, he realized they weren't dealing with just a rogue wave. They were dealing with pure psychological horror. Let me read you the exact verified entries. December 12th. Severe winds the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. James Ducat has been very quiet. Donald MacArthur has been crying. Let that sink in. MacArthur was a notorious tavern brawler, a gigantic hardened man. Why would a man who isn't afraid of anything be sitting in a highly secure stone fortress, crying? And Ducat, the experienced leader, struck completely mute with fear. The next entry, December 13th. Storm continued through the night. Wind shifted to west by north. Ducat, MacArthur, and I have been praying. 3 veteran lighthouse keepers, men who make their living in the ocean's wrath, reduced to praying for their lives, praying inside a tower that wasn't even shaking. There was no entry for December 14th, just silence. And then the final entry, written on the afternoon of December 15th, the exact day the passing ship noticed the light was out. December 15th. 1 p.m. storm ended, sea calm, God is over all. God is over all. Those were the last words Thomas Marshall ever wrote. But here is the most terrifying fact of this entire case. The ultimate paradox that makes investigators lose their minds. Remember how Marshall wrote about a severe apocalyptic storm on December 12th, 13th, and 14th? The storm that made a tough man cry. Mainland weather observatories recorded their data for those exact days. The observatories were just 15 miles away. The weather was completely calm. There was no storm. The real storm didn't hit the area until December 17th, so what exactly were the 3 men experiencing on that island? Did a localized microstorm trap them in a psychological nightmare? Did the isolation drive them into a shared delusion, leading to a violent murder-suicide where the last man standing threw himself off the cliff? The official investigation concluded that a freak rogue wave, a massive wall of water, over 100 feet tall, must have struck the cliff while they were securing equipment, sweeping all 3 men into the abyss. But if they were outside securing equipment, why was the main door firmly locked from the inside? And why did MacArthur leave his heavy coat behind? We will never know what actually happened at the Flannan Isles. 3 men faced something so terrifying that it broke their minds before it took their lives. What is your theory? Let me know below. Subscribe to the Archives of Blood.